Some of the most thorough and conscientious researchers into the UFO phenomenon, such as John Keel and Jacques Vallée, have also used the hyperdimensional framework to explain all of the high strangeness surrounding this and other related paranormal phenomena, which are not commonly thought of as being related or part of the same phenomena. Laura Knight-Jadczyk's books and online articles use Keel's and Vallée's research as a source, among many others. Her books High Strangeness, Hyperdimensions, and the Process of Alien Abductions, The Secret History of the World and How to Get Out Alive, and the 7 soon-to-be 8-volume books of The Wave, which is a combination of the online Wave and Adventure series, are a real eye-opener to just how strange the universe really is. These works are meticulously researched, with tons of citations and huge bibliographies for further reading. Morris Jessup's investigations into the UFO phenomenon is also extensively covered and used as a source. Jessup's work also points to the hyperdimensional aspects, particularly portals or windows, so to speak, between hyperdimensional realms. The work of mathematician Kurt Gödel, who also made some important contributions in physics, is also widely discussed on the Internet Discussion Forum and related websites. Gödel's ideas also allude to hyperdimensional realities and levels of consciousness and being. When I discovered these websites, I took a couple of years to look into their activities and research, some of which I had come across before, but lots of it was completely new to me. After taking my time and becoming quite familiar with their work, I joined the online forum and began to participate. This is a worldwide network that consists of people from all walks of life, from scientists and engineers and computer techies, to waiters and bartenders and everything in between. The research activities and dissemination of information are also very diverse. There's really no area of importance that the Quantum Future Group, which coordinates the research activities, doesn't look into in their researches. Shortly after finding the Cassiopeia site, I also began reading the Signs of the Times to get my news. SOTT.net is the best and most comprehensive news and analysis website on the internet today. And like the rest of the network activities, there are editors that gather news articles from all over the world and add commentary and links for further reading, etc. But the articles written specifically for SOTNet are some of the most informative articles as to what is really going on in the world available. Connecting the Dots is an excellent series that rounds up all the news from the past month or so and connects all the dots, giving a very informed and basically all-inclusive account of what's going on in the world. Also, the Best of the Web section is a collection of the best and most important articles on the internet. All of this is also very important because what's really going on in the world as far as current events and politics is concerned is as full of mystery as quantum physics and consciousness studies, without a large network to round it all up and analyze what's really going on in our world behind the mainstream media spin. SOT.net has recently begun a transition to a change in focus to bring more of the esoteric aspects center stage and lessen the hard-hitting political focus. It had become the best source of investigative journalism, looking into the grand conspiracies and cover-ups and connecting more dots in ways no other site did. SOT dissected the global geopolitical games and moves and exposed the true motivations and most likely outcomes for many years in an effort to make more people aware of the dangers of accepting the official big lies. But now a review was done and a decision made that the rest of the big picture should be emphasized more, including Earth changes, climate change, comet and asteroid threats, and cosmic chaotic cycles, and how all these interact with human consciousness and experiential cycle. because the window of opportunity to make a difference in the political and economic arena by spreading awareness to more people seems to be closing or has already closed. So the focus will be more on helping people see behind the superficial in all other areas. Now, my problem in the late 1980s concerning the problem of evil was the following. First of all, I was not religious in the traditional sense, although I was brought up Orthodox Christian. I was not a practicing Christian or any other organized religion in the strict sense, but I had deep religious or spiritual feelings all my life and had looked casually into many different religious teachings. None of them answered my questing soul, so to speak, though I found a few gems and nuggets of gold in many. That is to say, bits of truth and wisdom, if you will. But I didn't have an overall Christian conception of religious ideas or ideals. The problem I was faced with during this period in the late 1980s was that the monotheistic religions had a major logical contradiction in their treatment of the question of evil. This was a main issue covered in the class I took in college. If there was an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good single God, then where did evil come from? You can see the logical problem with this formulation. Either God was not all-powerful and or all-knowing, or God was not all-good. Otherwise, evil could not exist. If God only wanted good, was all-knowing, and was also all-powerful, how could he allow evil and so much of it to exist? Something was seriously wrong with this formulation, or something must have really gone awry with the great endless creation of God, the endless, all-knowing, all-just, and all-powerful Creator. In which case, there is at least a hint of incompetence on the part of the Creator, casting doubt on the all-powerful and all-knowing status. Conversely, the Creator was all-knowing and all-powerful, but in which case, he could not be all-good. So the concepts of STS, STO, and free will, specifically the universe being a free will universe, really opens up whole new worlds of thought closed to the narrow, dogmatic, organized monotheistic religions. Before I came to this wealth of information on the Cassiopeia websites, my best conception up to that point was that good and evil were both legitimate and needed for existence to come into being, that neither could exist without the other, and that there was free will to choose. Also, I had long since come to think of the idea of a personal God ridiculous. You know, the anthropomorphic ways of representing what we commonly refer to as God, with all too human qualities, including jealousy, revenge, hate, etc. All of this was part of the beginning of the turning point I mentioned. I also had a vague idea that to really be able to choose, and to do so consistently, between good and evil, one had to be able to discern which is which, and for that, one had to have all sorts of knowledge and understanding. Another vague concept that hovered around this overall conception was that there really is no such thing as evil per se, which is a very dangerous concept, although it is true on its own level. But that is a level much higher than the level we are currently on. On the level of quote-unquote God, this would be true. On the level of the source of the beginning and end of all and everything, all is one, all is unity, and all is good. Of course, the source of all and everything may not have a beginning or an end, and neither may anything else, just continuous cycles, and this is most probably true. But this is a very tricky and dangerous trap for us on our level not to admit the existence of evil. In fact, it could be said that it is the ultimate sacrilege or blasphemy if you are inclined to use common religious language, because you are dragging God and God's level of being down to your level, or falsely raising yourself up to a level much higher than your actual level. We can posit that the problem of evil is the main lesson of our level of existence. We must be able to tell good from evil consistently and freely choose which we support and with which we align. On top of all this new space of conceptualization opened up by these concepts, the Cassiopeans add their own totally unique take on existence by their famous saying, all there is lessons. Once at least a minimally adequate understanding of this concept is assimilated, one can see the limitless further understanding that is opened up. Very closely related to this concept of lessons are a couple of other totally unique Cassiopean ideas. Knowledge protects, ignorance endangers. Those with at least a somewhat open mind can see the tremendous possibilities of understanding opened up by these seemingly simple and very concise statements. We can feel the exciting possibilities of understanding what the purpose and meaning of our existence is. Studying the fourth way literature and the forum discussions shed light on the purpose and meaning of our existence in a very profound way as well. Of course, understanding comes after long study and clear critical thinking. The really unique character of the Cassiopean transmissions is that they encourage critical thinking, research and more research, and networking with others of like mind to further the knowledge and understanding of all. Even the raw law of one material does not explicitly do this as far as I know, but I'm not completely familiar with all of the raw material. However, with whatever parts I am familiar, and the background, it seems certain types of questions were not asked of the raw entity, mainly about negative or evil things. And so there was a limit on the kinds of information and direction for further research given by Ra. There were critical thinkers in the group, but also some sacred cows, that is to say, strongly held beliefs which did not allow certain lines of questioning, and thus certain kinds of information to be transmitted. Generally speaking, higher intelligences that are service to others will not communicate that which is not asked for. The concept of STO is very clearly explained by both Ra and the Cassiopeans, in that service to others never violates the free will of any other being. What a concept, right? Free will, freedom, is the most fundamental concept in a free will universe. So that we have to sincerely ask to get an answer from the universe, so to say. This is even covered in the Cassiopean transcripts, when Laura Knight, after a couple of years of experimenting with critical channeling with all sorts of dead dudes and dubious sources of limited knowledge and questionable nature coming through, finally made contact with the Cassiopeans, as they came to be called, in summer 1994. She asked them at one point early on in the communications why they responded to Laura. They replied, "Because you asked." Laura, in her usual way of critical questioning, not taking anything at face value, said that many people ask, or plead, or beg, but they don't get any real answers, or get all discombobulated with the answers they do get. The Cassiopeans replied, "No, think about it. You did not plead or beg. That's commanding," which is not true asking, but a form of manipulation, and so a violation of any real free will, no? And if the source is STO, they would not be open to violation of their own free will either. So the plot thickens. Plus, the manipulative asker would not be on the same wavelength, so to speak, as an STO source for the source to give answers and help, and would not be open to the truth of those answers, but would be submerged in subjectivity and wishful thinking. Some of the key characteristics of service to self, as opposed to the objectivity of service to others, which accepts all as it is without wishing or wanting to make things as one thinks they should be. So we have a brand new notion as to what real asking is. It is to be totally open, without preconceived ideas of what an acceptable answer is. No anticipation or limits in the kinds of paths that can open up before us, but to just ask with all of one's being, in total sincerity, to really want to know with no other agendas.